Recently revealed, Millionaire witnesses cleaner's incredible act of protection for special child. In the bustling suburban town of Maplewood, life pulsed with an unrelenting energy. The American dream hummed in the air, a promise alive for some but flickering precariously for others. Maria, a single mother, was one of those on the margins. At 35, she worked tirelessly cleaning the immaculate offices of an upscale law firm, her rough hands moving swiftly against the gleaming surfaces. Each swipe of her rag was more than just a job, it was hope gleaming under the fluorescent lights, illuminating a better life for her 7-year-old son, Jake. Jake was special, though the world often saw that differently. Diagnosed with a rare disability, he faced battles far heavier than his petite frame could carry. Bullying had become a cruel part of his reality at school, a slashing reminder of how unkind the world could be. Maria watched her son struggle, his spirit burning bright even as his peers turned away. "You are strong, Jake. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are," she told him each night, tucking him in. But late at night, when shadows danced on the walls, self-doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps their collective dreams were just unattainable myths. One fateful afternoon, while dusting polished mahogany desks, Maria collided with Jonathan, a local philanthropist known for his wealth and community contributions. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the world paused. Maria saw the glint of curiosity mixed with an unexpected softness in Jonathan's gaze. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice smooth yet genuine. Maria managed a smile, heart-pounding. Was it possible that someone like him could see her dignity? Days later, despair struck like lightning. Maria received a frantic call from Jake's school. Her stomach churned as she listened to the principal, words morphing into heavy weights. "We can't force other kids to play with him, Maria," he had said, brushing her concerns aside. Staring at the walls that felt so closing in, Maria felt a fire ignite within her, a fierce love that demanded justice for her son. Just then, Jonathan strolled into the school hallway, caught in a moment that would change everything. He observed Maria, standing tall against a wall of indifference, her voice steady and firm. "He deserves respect like any other child," she shouted, her voice breaking the suffocating silence. Jonathan's heart raced as he watched her fight for Jake's dignity. Here was a mother who wouldn't back down, a warrior in a world brimming with judgment and prejudice. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the emotional tension reached its peak, Jonathan's perspective began to shift. He realized wealth didn't define worth and that courage was often born in the shadows of struggle. Inspired, he decided to rally the community. With every passing moment, as Maria fought for her son, the stakes grew higher, not just for Jake but for countless families living on the edges of fleeting dreams. Could they push through the walls society had built around them? Would they finally illuminate the truth about resilience in their small town? With the whispers of change hovering in the air, an unexpected turn lay just beyond the horizon, threatening to shift their resolve and test their spirit. Would their community converge into a tapestry of compassion, or would they remain divided by the perceptions of privilege? As Maria squared her shoulders against the weight of the world, hope glinted between the cracks, setting the stage for a battle of hearts, a challenge they could never have anticipated. Maria stood in the school hallway, the lingering echoes of her shout still reverberating in her ears. The principal's face was a mask of discomfort, but Jonathan's presence was like a beacon of hope, lighting up the dim spaces of her heart. She caught his eye and for a moment, they shared silent understanding. This fight was no longer just about Jake, it was about every child who had ever felt unseen, every parent who had ever wrestled with despair in the lonely nights. The days that followed felt surreal and electric. News of Jonathan's plan to unite the community buzzed like a summer storm gathering strength. Flyers appeared in mailboxes, social media pages were flooded with posts, and a public meeting was announced. Maria hardly remembered sleeping. Each time she closed her eyes, visions of the meeting danced across her mind, visions of standing shoulder to shoulder with families who understood. In the whispers of hope, she felt emboldened. As the sun dipped low on the day of the meeting, Maria arrived at the town hall, her heart pounding as she stepped into the crowded room. Faces she'd seen before turned towards her, but tonight there was a shared energy that filled the space. Fear and hesitation melted into something warmer: community. Jonathan held the microphone in one hand, gesturing gracefully, his voice igniting the room. "We are here tonight not to place blame, but to uplift each other," he began, his calm compelling every ear to listen. "Together, we can break down the walls of ignorance and fear. Our children deserve to play, laugh, and grow side by side without prejudice." Applause erupted, hands clapping not just for Jonathan but for every silent voice that had longed for this moment. Maria felt tears prick her eyes. She thought of Jake, his smile lighting up the dark, echoing laughter that would dance in their home in the quieter times. But the memory of his hurt flooded back, a sharp reminder that the battle was far from won. Yet surrounded by people who wanted to stand together, doubt began to slip away. Perhaps, she thought, perhaps change was possible. One by one, parents spoke up, sharing their own stories of struggle, resilience, and love. Each voice was a thread weaving a tapestry of belonging. Maria's nervousness turned into courage. When her turn came, she stood before the crowd, gripping the edge of the podium to steady her shaking hands. "Jake is my everything," she began, her chin lifted high. "He's not just my son, he's a light, and he deserves a chance to shine just like all the other kids. But it's not just Jake. We need to see all our children for who they are and who they can be." Her heart raced as her words found purchase in the listeners. Energy crackled in the air. A collective breath seemed to hold them all temporarily suspended, united by a new purpose. But just as the atmosphere lifted with hope, an unexpected voice cut through, sharp and antagonistic. "And what about the rest of our children? They should not have to suffer for your son's differences." The words twisted in the air, a dark shadow threatening to snuff out the spark. A wave of murmurs spread through the room, uncertainty creeping back in. Maria's heart raced, caught between the spark of hope and the sting of division. As she looked around, she knew the fight was just beginning. Would the community stand behind their words or retreat into familiar patterns of judgment? Could Maria hold on to the hope that had ignited in that room? The room pulsed with tension, and though the path wasn't clear, one thing was certain: there was no turning back now. The moment was fragile, poised between light and shadow, setting the stage for a confrontation that could shatter or solidify their united front. What would happen next? The tension in the room hung heavy, like a thick fog that blotted out the warmth of hope. Maria's breath hitched in her throat as she scanned the crowd. Faces reflected a mix of disbelief and fear, ready to erupt into chaos or unite behind her message. Jonathan took a step forward, eyes locked on the source of the dissent. "Let us not lose sight of what we're here for," he said, voice steady, yet laced with urgency. "Every child has intrinsic value. It's not about taking away from one to uplift another. Each child deserves love, support, and understanding." More murmurs rippled through the crowd, some agreeing, while others still clung to their doubts. A woman stepped forward, her brow furrowed, hands trembling at her sides. "But my child has been bullied too. We can't just post our feelings online while the reality is that things aren't changing." Maria's heart sank. That familiar ache tightened her chest, the deeper worry that nothing would change after all. Yet, she refused to retreat into silence again. "You're right. It's painful for all of us. But can we afford to let anger stand in the way of progress?" The woman's eyes were fierce. "Are you saying we should accept what is happening, just accept it as part of the normal?" "No. I'm saying we have the power to change it." Maria's voice shook, fueled by desperation. "Jake deserves a chance to be a kid just like everyone else's child. What if we stood together instead of apart? What if we shared our voices and our stories instead of letting fear dictate our actions? The energy shifted again, whispers swirled, a mixture of anger and curiosity. Eyes darted between Maria and the woman who had challenged her, tension simmering. A slight nod of agreement came from a man in the back. If we want change, it starts by acknowledging we all have fears that our kids want to be safe, want to fit in. Another parent joined in. Sure, it's scary to think of change. But wouldn't it be scarier to do nothing at all? Nods began to spread like ripples across the room, small but gathering momentum. Maria felt the warmth rise in her chest, chasing away the doubt that had clouded her heart. In this town, Jonathan spoke, raising his voice above the growing noise of agreement, we can create a culture of acceptance. It won't happen overnight, but every step counts. Every child matters. The applause surged, echoing against the walls like thunder, pushing back the shadows that threatened to consume them. But just when it felt like they might break through, a voice from the far side pierced through the enthusiastic claps. What if it's too late? What if the damage is already done? Silence fell again, an icy hand gripping Maria's heart. Could they really do this? Could they reverse years of fear and misunderstanding? She looked into the eyes of the crowd, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over her. Maybe it's never too late. Change starts right here, right now in this room, with all of us. Rows of parents shifted, faces lighting with uncertainty and hope. The air was electric, transforming slowly from hostility toward unity. Maria could see the flickers of something new, something powerful erupting, but it needed more. A spark. Outside the town hall, a commotion stirred. A group of children had gathered, clutching handmade signs. In unison, they started chanting, "We are all friends. Love wins." The joy in their voices beckoned the adults to take a leap of faith, to embrace the moment. As Maria stepped forward from the podium, she felt the weight of their world balancing on her shoulders. She wasn't just speaking for Jake anymore, she was speaking for every child who had ever felt different. Now, faced with the fierce realization that they were on the brink of something essential, the question loomed, would they answer that call, or let it slip away? The energy shifted once more, ready to erupt in either direction. But one thing was certain, the next step was crucial, and Maria had to make it count. What would she choose? Maria took a deep breath, her heart racing as the voices of the children outside echoed through the walls. They were so innocent, so hopeful. It pierced through her uncertainty, filling her with determination. She needed to channel that energy into something bigger, something that might spark real change. Let's take a moment, she called out, raising her hands to quiet the crowd. Faces turned toward her, their eyes wide with expectation. I can feel the hope in this room. I can feel it outside with our kids, but it needs us. We can't let fear win. We have to be the voice for those who've been silenced for too long. Jonathan nodded, stepping closer to her, giving her strength. We should invite those kids in, he said. Let us remind everyone why we're here. They need to see our commitment. A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience, some nodding in agreement while others exchanged uncertain glances. Are we ready for this? One father questioned, crossing his arms defensively, another mother chimed in with a shake of her head. I don't know if we can handle the emotions, what if they get hurt again? No one is going to get hurt, Jonathan responded firmly. These kids are here to show us the unity we crave. Their voices matter just as much as ours. The fear that writhed through the crowd turned slowly into curiosity and determination. Maria took a step forward, her voice gaining strength. Exactly. This is a chance for them to lead us. They understand friendship and acceptance better than we do sometimes. They break boundaries with laughter and trust. The crowd began to shift, some parents visibly relaxing as they began to understand what Maria was proposing. The hard edges of doubt softened, allowing room for empathy and realization. Another wave of excited chatter erupted as a few parents moved toward the doors to invite the children inside. Maria's pulse quickened, anticipation washing over her. The whispers were alive with energy, and she felt the growing momentum. Before long, the children poured in, their bright smiles lighting up the room like sunshine on a cloudy day. They held their signs high, proclaiming their messages of love and friendship, the paper trembling in their small, eager hands. "Dad! Mom! Look," one little boy shouted, an unyielding grin plastered across his face. "We told you. We are all friends." The parents' expressions shifted, caught off guard by this untapped joy. Laughter erupted as children threaded their way between the adults, seamlessly bridging the gaps of age and conflict. Maria watched, her heart filled with a warmth that drove the chill from the room. "This is what we need. They're showing us what it means to be together," she urged, gripping the podium as if it were a lifeline. "They remind us that love is stronger than fear. Let us build this together." The crowd roared, their claps echoing like the pounding of a drum, solidifying the bridge forged by their children. For the first time that night, what had once seemed an insurmountable mountain of fear transformed into a pathway paved with hope. Yet, just as the applause reached its peak, a shadow flickered at the corner of the room. A voice deep and loaded with skepticism cut through the noise. "But what happens when the real world hits them again? You think this is enough?" The shift in mood was palpable. Maria felt a tightness in her chest return, an old familiar fear creeping back. Would they really be able to protect their children once they left this room? With the room hanging in the balance, Maria met the gaze of the doubter, her own heart pounding. "What if we can build a real world where love wins, not just for today, but forever? Are we willing to fight for that?" As the murmurs of agreement began to swell again, she realized that the path ahead wasn't clear, but it was crucial. It would demand even more commitment, and the storm of emotions was just beginning. How far would they go to protect this vulnerable spark of hope in their children's hearts? The air felt electric, charged with a kaleidoscope of emotions. Maria's heart thudded in tandem with the pulse of the crowd. She could sense the change washing over them. The children had brightened their world, even momentarily. Yet the lingering doubt echoed louder now, a reminder of the fragile nature of hope. As the last claps of encouragement faded, Maria took a slow step back from the podium, creating space for the real voices filling the room. The children formed a vibrant circle, laughter intertwining with their words, while the parents watched, still wary but captivated. Jonathan leaned closer to Maria, eyes glimmering with a mix of pride and worry. "What's next? We can't just stop here, right? We need to channel this into something productive." He was right. Maria felt it bubbling within her, a need to transform this energy into action. "We can form committees, come together as a community. We can organize events that emphasize love and acceptance. We can rally support for these kids, not just today, but every day." The excitement in her voice sparked interest. Parents began whispering excitedly to each other, faces lighting up with wild ideas: movie nights, community festivals, workshops for children and adults alike. Inspiration swept through the crowd like fire in dry grass. It was contagious. But then, an older lady rose from the back. Her silver hair glimmered under the fluorescent lights, her hands shaking slightly. "And what if we fail?" she quavered. "What if we can't hold this unity together when we step back into the world?" Maria turned to look at her, locking eyes. "What if we succeed? What if we prove that love is more than just a fleeting moment? This isn't just about what can go wrong. It's about growing from togetherness. If we try, we can inspire change beyond these walls." Soft murmurs built up again, a mix of worry but also a flicker of belief. One by one, parents began to nod. "Yes. We'll create a safe space for our kids," a mother exclaimed, raising her hand as if to vote. "Let us show them that we stand united." As the power of agreement washed over them, the initial fear began to recede, replaced gradually by burgeoning hope. Maria felt stronger now, nourishing the seeds of change planted in each heart within the room. They were moving from fear into a vision woven together, one of a better tomorrow. The children's laughter called her back from her thoughts. They were vibrant sparks of potential, the future standing before them, embodying everything they longed to protect. Maria's chest swelled as she smiled. But then, a loud crash tore through the joyful atmosphere, jolting everyone back into reality. The doors swung open hard against the wall, revealing a figure standing in the doorway, shadows dancing across their face. "Who's ready for a dose of reality?" The stranger boomed, a sardonic smile on their lips. The crowd froze, confusion twisting through the air like thick smoke. Maria's heart raced again, but she stood firm. The joy was flickering, but she believed in the fire they had ignited together. "We are!" she shouted back, challenging the darkness before them with renewed strength. As the crowd echoed her enthusiasm, mixing determination with a hint of fear, Maria couldn't help but wonder how deep this fight would go. What would it take to shield their children from the harsh reality that loomed? Would this moment of unity be enough to face the impending storm? The figure in the doorway chuckled, a sound that reverberated off the walls like an unwelcome echo. "You think you're ready for change? You think unity lasts outside this room?" Maria's gaze narrowed, her heart pounding against her ribs. She felt the heat from the crowd shift, uncertainty rising like dust in a sunbeam. The stranger's presence was a cold gust of wind, threatening to extinguish the flame they had all ignited together. "Who are you?" Maria asked, her voice steady, cutting through the tension. With a slow step forward, the figure revealed their face, a smirk dancing on their lips. "Name's Charlie. I'm the dose of reality this little fairy tale needs. You all talk about love and support, but will you really rise to the occasion? Or is this just a fleeting moment of warmth before the world's chill returns?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents exchanged anxious glances, the boldness of their earlier resolve suddenly wrapped in uncertainty. Maria took a deep breath, reminding herself of why they had all gathered. "We're not just talking. We're planning to take action. We're stronger together, and we won't let fear dictate how we advocate for our kids." Charlie raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And what happens when a bigger force comes crashing in? You think movie nights will shield them from real threats? People like us, those closing doors and distancing themselves from your unity, they'll be lurking at every corner." A murmur swept through the crowd. Doubt flickered like a dimming light. Jonathan stepped forward, fists clenched. "What do you know about love? About sacrifice? This isn't just a fairy tale for us. This is our lives." The tension hung in the air, the room thick with emotion. Charlie shrugged, dismissing Jonathan's words. "And what if you lose? What if your love isn't strong enough when it really matters?" Everyone was silent, the weight of his words pressing down on them. But deep within, Maria refused to waver. She remembered why they gathered. What they were fighting for. The children's laughter, their courage in facing a world filled with uncertainty. "What if we thrive?" Maria countered. "What if we stand together against those bigger forces? What if love becomes an unstoppable force? We won't back down. Not now." As she spoke, she saw flickers of resolve return in the eyes of the parents, a fire stoking each heart back to life. The crowd began to murmur, voices rising stronger, more assured. Charlie's smirk faltered, the smug confidence draining from his demeanor. "You really think it's that simple?" "Maybe not simple," Jonathan replied, "but we're ready to fight for our kids. Isn't that what matters? Isn't that worth any risk?" The air was electric again. The collective heartbeat of the crowd quickened, fueling one another's courage. Maria felt the surge of belief coursing through the room, pushing back against Charlie's doubt. Then, just when hope felt palpable, the lights flickered, plunging them into momentary darkness. Whispers erupted in panic. A loud crash echoed from outside, followed by shouts. The mix of fear and realization swept over the crowd like dark clouds. "What is happening? Maria glanced around, eyes wide. Charlie's smile reappeared, but this time it was charged with something darker. Welcome to reality. At that moment, Maria knew that this was not just a challenge they faced together, it was a fight for their very essence as a community. With every heartbeat, the stakes rose, and Maria felt a deeper sense of purpose prevailing over fear, but as the tension thickened, what awaited them outside those doors? Would they be able to protect their children and each other from the harshness of the world beyond? An ominous silence loomed, waiting for someone to break it first. The lights returned abruptly, flickering back to life with a harsh buzz that grated on everyone's nerves. Maria blinked, scanning the room. Eyes met hers, wide with fear and trepidation. She could almost feel the collective breath being held, an unspoken question hanging above them. What was that? A voice broke through the anxious murmur. It belonged to Sarah, her voice trembling. Maria stepped forward, trying to project calm. Let us see what's going on. Stay close, she said, a firm note in her voice. In that moment, she had never felt more responsible. The crowd began to shift, following her as she approached the door. Other parents, fists ready, exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They were worried but resolute. Together, they pushed the door open to reveal a scene that sent chills running down Maria's spine: chaos. The street outside was filled with frantic shouts and the blaring of sirens. Emergency vehicles lit up the area with flashing lights, casting ominous shadows. A small group of protesters had gathered, holding signs that read slogans of division. Anger and fear mingled in the air like smoke. Maria felt the heat of adrenaline surge through her veins. We need to stand together. She called out, her heart racing as she looked at the faces around her. This is exactly what we're fighting against. Why are they here? Someone else yelled, clearly bewildered. The mob outside seemed to honor no bounds. They won't let us have our space, our safety. Someone shouted again, eyes wild. Charlie stood beside her, arms crossed, a hesitant look in his eyes. And how will you stop them? He sneered. More love. More talk. Maria turned to Charlie, knowing she had to disregard his dismissive tone. What we need is unity and action, not fear. She shouted back, quite aware that she needed to rally every ounce of encouragement she had. With determination guiding her steps, she led the way outside. The crowd followed, hesitant but combative. As she moved closer to the hostile group, she could see faces filled with contempt, fiery eyes shining in the light of the emergency vehicles. You think your children will be safe in this world? A man shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos. Maria felt her stomach twist. This is not just talk. She shouted back, breaking through the growing noise. We are here for our kids. For their future. The tension between the two groups spiraled, fists were clenched tightly and deep breaths taken. A child from the crowd behind her tugged at her shirt, looking up with eyes glistening in confusion and fear. That look pierced right through the noise, grounding her. We are all connected. Maria continued, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat echo in her ears. We are more than our differences. We can change the narrative together. An uneasy quiet fell after her words. She felt the attention shift, some of the anger softening in the eyes of the protesters. We've faced fear together, and we are stronger than ever. Jonathan joined her, stepping forward with conviction. We won't be pushed around. Not when our future is at stake. A new murmur began, this one seeded with hope. But just as Maria felt the momentum shifting, she couldn't ignore the sense that they were standing on a precipice, balancing between increasing tension and the possibility of change. As some of the protesters began to reconsider, something hard crashed against the pavement. It echoed like a war cry, drawing everyone's attention away. Maria froze as she caught sight of a figure at the edge of the crowd, one that made her heart drop. It was a familiar face from the past, someone she had thought long gone. Is that? She whispered, breath hitching in her throat. What would they say? What would they do? And what would this mean for the fight ahead? As dread spiraled inside her, she gripped Jonathan's arm tightly, her mind racing. The moment lingered, heavy and profound. Maria's heart raced. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty while the world around them felt sharp and surreal. She could hardly breathe. The familiar features cut through the chaos. An old friend from school. David. What are you doing here? She wanted to shout, but her voice caught in her throat. Memories surged back, a jumble of laughter and late-night talks turned bitter with time. The sight of him brought back all the unresolved questions she had buried beneath layers of adulthood. As she stepped forward, the tension thickened. David stood on the outskirts, his expression a mix of surprise and something darker. Had he really found his way back to this place? After everything they had been through? Maria! He called out, voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. Is it really you? Suddenly, the noise seemed to fade, as if they were in a bubble of their own. The anger among the crowds dissolved somewhat, replaced by the weight of unfinished stories. What are you doing here? She asked finally, words slipping out, vulnerable and raw. This isn't the place for you. You don't understand what I do understand, he interrupted, stepping closer, and for just a moment, there was a flicker of the boy she once knew in his eyes. I've seen what's been happening. I came to help. A gasp rippled across the crowd. Murmurs filled the air, people torn between disbelief and intrigue. Maria's heart thudded as she looked at him. Help? With what? How exactly do you plan to help? Charlie's voice cut through the moment, irritation lacing his tone. With more signs. More protests. With a sudden fierceness, Maria stepped forward. Stop. This isn't the moment for divisions between us. If he's here, it means he's with us now. Isn't that enough? Pressure surged in her chest, igniting a spark of hope. David's presence might be the catalyst they needed, yet doubt loomed heavy in the air. The crowd seemed stuck in a limbo, half of them ready to embrace the idea of collaboration, the other half still clinging to anger. Maria looked back at David, whose gaze was now serious and focused. The world outside is changing. It needs us, and it needs children like yours protected. We all need to be on the same side together, he urged, his sincerity cutting through Maria's hesitation. Raising her voice, Maria replied, if we can unite, we can shift this tide. We're not just defending ourselves, we're defending our children's dreams. A flicker of recognition played on several faces. The time had come for them to transcend their past grievances and walk forward. Then, out of nowhere, the crashing noise returned, the unmistakable sound of glass shattering against pavement. The crowd jerked back, faces contorted in alarm. What now? Jonathan cried out, fear creeping into his voice. The sense of unity frayed slightly, but then Maria remembered the child behind her. The one who had grabbed her shirt. Their eyes met, wide and full of hope, holding on to a fragile belief that maybe, just maybe, they could make things right. Stay strong. She shouted, gripping David's arm. We can't let them intimidate us. All eyes were on her, and she could feel the energy shifting, a quiet resolve unfurling. But before they could even process the moment, she noticed someone else move toward the front of the crowd, a woman, wide-eyed and trembling. Maria's gut twisted again, waiting for whatever storm was about to break. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. Were they ready to embrace both the past and whatever lay ahead? Follow me, the woman called softly, her voice trembling yet filled with urgency. I need to show you something. And just like that, as curiosity coursed through the crowd, Maria realized that the real battle was just beginning. What would they discover together? Maria followed the trembling woman without hesitation, her heart pounding in rhythm with the echoes of shattering glass behind them. The crowd shifted, curiosity flickering in their eyes, mixing with apprehension. David stayed close, a steadfast presence beside her. Where are we going? Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman turned briefly, her face illuminated by the dim light of the street lamps. To see the truth. It's about what happened earlier. You need to understand. The word sent another wave of unease rippling through Maria. She glanced at David, who raised an eyebrow in intrigue and concern. They squeezed through the thrumming mass of people, instinctively gathering closer as the crowd pressed behind them, uncertain yet compelled to follow. As they approached the edge of the crowd, the woman gestured toward a small alleyway, dimly lit and flanked by graffiti-covered walls. The air felt charged with something urgent, and Maria's gut twisted as she stepped further in, her breath hitching slightly. "What is this place?" she murmured, noticing the way the hum of voices faded, replaced by the faint trickle of water from an unseen source. "Just wait," the woman urged, nearly stumbling in her haste. They came to a stop at the mouth of the alleyway, and Maria's heart sank at the sight before them. A makeshift camp lay nestled in the shadows, children huddled together, wrapped in worn blankets, their eyes reflecting a blend of fear and hope. "What?" The question hung in the air, heavy. "I didn't know if you'd believe me," the woman said softly, her voice now trembling with emotion. "But look at them. They need help. They've been abandoned." Maria's heart shattered at the sight, the fragile figures of kids who should have been laughing and playing, not hiding in despair. A knot tightened in her throat. What happened to them? They came from the shelters. They thought it was safe, but it isn't. Not anymore. Tears streamed down the woman's cheeks. "I was cleaning there, and I saw them running. They need community protection." David stepped forward, urgency etching his features. "What do you need us to do?" His voice was steady, filled with commitment. "We need supplies. We need food and clothes. We need to show them they aren't alone." The electricity in the air shifted again, charging the atmosphere with new purpose. Maria looked out across the makeshift camp. Together, she whispered to David. "If we link arms with the community, we could help them. We could show everyone what's happening. We can rally support." Her mind raced, possibilities cascading like a waterfall: donations, local businesses stepping up, families opening their hearts. Hope, fierce and burning, ignited within her, but as she turned back to the group, the weight of doubt returned. Would they rally for the children? Would the community willing to come together now, with the fear of chaos still thick in the air? "That's a great idea," Charlie piped up as he stepped closer, joining them. "But we'll need a plan. We can't just take the supplies without proper organization." There was a collective nod among the crowd now gathering at the mouth of the alley, their resolve solidifying. Maria wanted to believe they could do this. But deep down, she felt the tug of uncertainty. What if they failed? What if chaos swallowed them once more? Just then, there was another crash, this time echoing even louder. The air went still. Maria's heartbeat quickened, fear washed over her again, freezing any words on her lips. "What now?" someone in the crowd whispered, the tension mounting. As she looked around, uncertainty and determination playing on every face, Maria suddenly felt the weight of her responsibility. The children were counting on them. Yet, she wondered, could they really unite and overcome the looming storm? Before she could voice her thoughts, the alley erupted in frightened gasps. The crowd turned as a figure stepped forward, holding something above their head. The light gleamed on a metal object. What revelation awaited them next? The figure stepped closer, lowering the shining object to reveal a small, dented metal box. The crowd gasped, collective breaths held tightly. "What is it?" someone murmured nervously. As the figure moved into the glow of the streetlights, Maria felt a rush of recognition. It was Sarah, the trembling woman who had guided them here. "I found this near the shelter," Sarah said, her voice strained yet resolute. "It was tossed aside in all the chaos. I think it's important." She waved the box, catching the dim light, making it dance like a beacon against the shadows. A flurry of questions erupted around her, confusion woven through excitement. "Open it. Someone cried. Sarah hesitated, heart racing with the weight that seemed to fill the air. What if it's empty? She whispered, but the fervor in the crowd pushed her forward. Hope is what they need right now. Maria encouraged, stepping closer, feeling the support of her community flooding behind her. Together, let us see what we find. Taking a deep breath, Sarah unclasped the box. It creaked open, revealing a scattering of colorful papers inside. The crowd leaned in, curiosity peaking. What are they? Shouted Jonathan, eyes wide with anticipation. With trembling hands, Sarah pulled out a few sheets drawings made by children, vibrant and overflowing with life. Crayon strokes captured smiles, flowers, and scenes of laughter, echoing innocence despite the shadows around them. These kids wanted to share their joy, to express how they see the world. She exclaimed, her voice breaking. A ripple of emotion coursed through the crowd. Parents exchanged glances, eyes shiny with unshed tears, as the reality of their actions began to settle in. Together, they were witnessing the raw power of resilience. Maria stepped forward again, voice unwavering. This is proof that hope exists, that together we can create a different narrative. Look what they've made. This is a call to action. Encouragement began to swell, and one by one, people began stepping forward to take a look at the drawings. Words of admiration circled the alley as joy mixed with recognition. They need us. A mother called out. We can build a safe haven, another father added, conviction hardening his stance. The energy in the crowd shifted. It was no longer about fighting, it was about building. We'll gather supplies, we'll get donations. Maria shouted over the ripple of enthusiasm. And we'll bring the community together. We'll show them they aren't alone. David joined in, smiling widely. We can host events, fundraisers, anything. Their voices matter, and they are part of us. As the ideas flowed freely, a warmth radiated between them, binding their fears, hopes, and ambition into a single, powerful current. The feeling was electric, community rising from the ashes of doubt, transforming into a force that could rekindle the faith of their children. Suddenly, Maria felt a small hand tugging at her shirt. She turned to see the child who had followed her earlier, wide-eyed and beaming. Can I help too? The child asked, innocence radiating like a glow. Absolutely, sweetheart. We need all hands on deck. Maria replied, feeling tears of joy threaten to spill. The crowd erupted in cheers, forming teams on the spot. Ideas ignited like wildfire: food drives, art showcases, community cleanups. Their challenge had transformed into purpose. It was clear now. They would not merely stand against adversity, they would build a future rooted in unity. In that instance of hope, Maria stepped back, taking in her surroundings. She saw compassion in so many faces, resilience woven into the hearts crowded around her. This is ours. She shouted, voice strong. This is just the beginning of a brighter tomorrow. Together. As they chanted, voices rising beyond the walls of fear, a spark ignited within every heart. They would face whatever lay ahead, fueled by the laughter of children, sustained by love and grit. The storm might howl, but together, they were ready to weather anything. They were ready to make change happen. Together, they would become a beacon of hope in Maplewood. As the last remnants of doubt faded, Maria felt joy bubble up inside her. It was time to step into the light, to let their voices carry far beyond the alley, to shine a new path for their children. Now was the moment to build, to create the world they wanted to see. And with that thought blooming bright and true, she cast her gaze into the future, filled with purpose. This was the beginning of something beautiful. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Take a second and leave a like now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your voice, so comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel in these powerful moments.